Well, welcome Dennis.
Thank you.
To the Horizon podcast.
Thank you very much.
Today we have Dennis Broek on the podcast, the co-founder of IM College, and we have a connection as well. You've been to one of our dinners, right?
I've been, yes. Yeah,
as
really
an unknown.
enjoyable.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What did you like about it the most?
I thought the informal setting and the let's say the group iteration.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'd love to have you back. So I'd like to start off with IM College. This is an entrepreneurship university.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about it, please?
Yes, of course. It's we founded the school in 2017, and it has the aim to guide young people through their learning journey. And the key focus areas are entrepreneurship, personal development, and skill-based learning. And the key driver of the starting and the foundation of the school has been that we believe that the current education system is very much focused on reproducing knowledge through the tests and grading, instead of actually learning people to think for themselves and develop their entrepreneurial skills.
And you said you started the school in 2017. Obviously, I'm assuming this was a longer decision in the process. What was that one thing that made you go like, okay, we need this right now?
The actually decision of starting the school was done by the founder. His name is Rutger de Hamer.
Mm-hmm.
He's the, let's say, the founder and also the founding father. He invented the entire idea. And his journey started maybe 20 or 15 years earlier, or whatever, because he has a very strong, let's say, he's quite dyslexic, and he was always being found dumb at school because he couldn't really get high grades. So his journey started, let's say, 15 years earlier, and that's why he had this strong ambition and drive and fire inside of him to start a school which was not based on getting grades, but on developing skills and personal development. And my journey started actually around 2017, because then I founded my investment company. And the investment company was basically, the sole purpose was to invest in purpose-driven companies. And then I met Rutger at some kind of dinner, and I was convinced by the business idea basically from the start. So I just invested quite early afterwards.
What made you convinced right off the bat?
Yeah, I think the drive and energy of Rutger, and his compelling explanation of the idea. And it was also right timing, because I just came back from my expat adventures. I lived abroad for a long time. And I thought investing in, let's say, a crossover between education and entrepreneurship would be could be wonderful.
And obviously, you said you were taken back by the idea like straight away. Did you already think before that the education system needed a change? Were you already in that mindset, or this was a new thing that came about and you were like, this is amazing?
No, I've already thought long ago, even during my own. I think every time when there's a soliciting for a new student, the parents are normally my age, and they all say, I wish this school would have existed when I went to school. So this is the, let's say, which we hear, let's say, 100 times a year during interviews, and especially with parents around the age of 45, 50. And they all say the same. They say, I wish this school would have existed when I went to school. So I think already when I was, let's say, 20 or 18, and I went to school and I had to study Spanish or geography or other types of, let's say, classes which I didn't really think were going to be beneficial for my future. I never understood quite clearly why I had to study them, and also why I had to be graded by it, and that the grading system would also basically determine my level. So when I was young, I thought it was ridiculous, or at least very strange. And so the idea was really appealing to me because it's something I think we should have done decades ago. And what's also quite interesting is that in the Nordics, the school system has already been changed decades ago, where you are not allowed in a certain way to grade people until they're 16 at all. So there the education system is completely based on, let's say, personal development and skill-based learning. I think this era in which knowledge is so accessible and doesn't need to be, let's say, learned by heart, education forms in different ways are super important. So it was not, the idea was relatively new to me, but it was so clear to me that this was very logical that I didn't need much convincing.
And you said that this existed in the Nordics far before us. Why do you think it wasn't brought in here when you were going to school, for example?
That's a lot to do with culture. I think the Dutch education system is like an oil tanker, so it's not something you can maneuver around very simple. And also I think in our Calvinistic, let's say, culture belief system, we think, let's say, in grading is a way to understand if people have learned something. And if that belief system is very deep and rooted in the culture, it's not something you can easily change.
That's interesting because I identify with that a lot as well because I'm a student at Unknown University and college is closely partnered with Unknown University as well. And I went through the system. I was in high school. I went to a normal university, let's say that. And so I want to personally thank you for also being involved in something like this and pushing this narrative of education that I also believe needs to change because there's a lot of people like me out there who just aren't good at studying but are more inclined by, as you called it, sorry, could you...
Skill-based learning and personal development.
Exactly.
Well, I think I want to thank you as well, and as indeed the merging between college and Unknown University is an extremely important step, as well for Unknown College, but I also believe it's important for Unknown University because we need skill. And on a, let's say, a second thought, I think you are very good at learning and very good at studying. You're an extremely intelligent person, but you're not maybe good at reproducing knowledge into grades. So I think there's a huge misunderstanding about intelligence, and there's a huge misunderstanding about what it is to be intelligent or how to study. Because I think there's nothing wrong with being able to get good grades, and for a large audience that's certainly applicable, and I'm not necessarily against it. So I don't think, I'm not a revolutionary person, maybe just a little bit, but not that much. So I'm not saying the system has to disappear, I'm just saying it should be, there should be different types of education for different types of learning behaviors. And since a lot of people have a different path in developing themselves, I believe it's extremely important that these kinds of schools exist. Because, especially as you say it, and you are clearly not an underachieving person, you even say about yourself now that you're not good at studying. So it's still in your belief system that you're not good at studying. And I am telling you that you're very good at studying, and but you behave in a different way. And by obtaining knowledge, and let's say also by showing that you have obtained that knowledge in a different way, only means that you study in a different way, not that you're not good at studying.
So it's the reproducing of it actually that's where the key is. Like if someone can reproduce the studying, or they can reproduce it in a different way, that knowledge that they attained.
No, that would be an oversimplification. I think certainly it's an important part, but it's not the part. I think the key part is that you I think in a normal school, you are being taught in a fixed route. So you have to study through a certain amount of topics in a certain amount of order, with, let's say, fixed exam periods and fixed protocols of how it has been done. And in that, let's say, fixed framework, I think a lot of talent is lost. And part of that framework is grading and reproducing through grades. So that's more, let's say, the outcome of it, but it's not necessarily the root cause. I think the root cause is that the normal education system is quite, let's say, isn't really favorable for people with dyslexia or people with a different type of learning behavior. And because the system is quite rigid, it doesn't allow for different learning styles to adapt and to flourish. So I think this is the key driver, and grading is part of the outcomes which makes it visible.
And going back to the partnership with London University, could you detail that for me, how you guys are helping each other? Because obviously it's similar disciplines.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's actually quite it's like I compare it with, let's say, building a stone wall. So it's basically two stones of the same wall, with some mortar in between. And our college is focused more on, let's say, the small medium enterprises, and is quite focused on the Dutch market. And Unknown University is more, let's say, internationally focused and more a little bit more academic, or not a little bit more, is more academic. So it's basically the vertical of the same education system with different, let's say, target audiences. But it also is, of course, applicable that you can go through it vertically. So if you finished IM College, you can go to Unknown University. And we are helping each other already quite a lot with, let's say, outreach, marketing, learning development programs, backend systems like finance, legal, co-using utilities like buildings. So the overlap is quite big, because basically it's like it's almost, so the business is identical, but the target audience is slightly different. And we're also now covering several cities. Instead of one, we're covering two now, so Amsterdam and The Hague. So the overlap is quite intense. And
do you see any other players in the market coming up with this kind of education?
I have to acknowledge that I don't know.
Okay.
So I think there are quite some education systems, it's called Agora, on a lower level, let's say primary school, and they have done it for decades now, where they also mix different levels of students inside one school, and they coexist in the same program, instead of that it's very layered or very, very separated. And their education has been very successful already for a while. I think that the normal school system does tend to navigate more towards our type of learning, also because of the AI time frame we're living in. Because obviously reproducing knowledge now is quite silly, because if you type in two prompts, then you get more knowledge than you could have had 50 years ago. So the reproducing, let's say, focus, I think, is becoming less. So, but still, again, the Dutch education system is like an oil tanker, and also the institutions. So I think it's changing, but it's quite political. And what you also see is that, for instance, I think 2 administrations ago, you had this Robert Dijkgraaf. He was a very pronounced, let's say, professor from, I think, Princeton. And he was the Minister of Education, and he emphasized a lot more on skill-based development and personal development, and then but that administration only lasted, I think, 10 months. I don't know. We have administrations every 5 quarters here. So there's a direct correlation between how much the system is going to pivot with how much emphasis it gets from the political system. So I think there are quite some organizations which try it, but building a school is not for the faint-hearted, because the system itself doesn't really support it. So you have to do it also in a private setting. So you have to be quite resilient. I don't think it's a super appealing market for normal, let's say, profit-driven or return-driven investors.
More for impact-driven.
Yeah. Yes, more for impact-driven investors, and then you still have to have quite a big heart, because it's very, let's say, rewarding, but the business case is it's not like a hockey stick, you know. You have to. Education is actually the real profit is in the development of the young people.
And you said it's very rewarding. Could you give some examples of when you felt this with students?
Yeah, it happens basically on a day-to-day basis. I think there's a lot of young people who are stuck in the system. So they are obviously intelligent and they know how to study, but they don't know how to study or progress in the current system. So only at IM College we have 100 young people who show on a day-to-day basis that they have they're thriving young people with ambition, and they can hit the ground now because all of a sudden they can really reach their potential because the system doesn't block them anymore. So there are quite a lot of examples. I think we already have 20 businesses already came out of IM College, which are still alive today. I still speak to a lot of students from the beginning regularly. And I think what is the most rewarding for me as an investor is that you see that there are quite a number of young people at the age of 17, 18 who have been at home for a while because they were considered less suitable to develop, and in our school they thrive. So that's obviously that makes a big impact on people.
And given that you speak to, you mentioned that there's 20 companies now running that came out of IM College. Would you say that is a success metric for you guys, or what would you call a success metric for IM College students?
I think for me as an investor, the key success metric would be longevity of the school. So this is basically my North Star. So I think and maybe that's also because I'm an investor, I think the longevity of the school would be my North Star metric, because I think the school itself is extremely important, and I also would like another metric for me would be to have, let's say, 2 or 3 schools on a bit of a more geographical spread, with, let's say, between 150 to 200 students per school. That would be a second very important metric for me, because then it means that the business case becomes viable. And the number of young people who start a business is, I think, certainly a metric for the founder, because he is very entrepreneurial and he chose the let's say the vehicle of entrepreneurship as a surrounding of to bring the education system to life, because he can do it in different environments. But education is the driver chosen by the founder. So for him, I think the number of companies started out of IM College is certainly a metric.
Interesting. And you said you're in contact with these students, these 20 companies that came out. What sort of role do you play in their lives?
Mainly, I think maybe mentorship, guiding, and because I'm My driver is my focus is mainly on structure of companies, governance, shareholdership. Also, let's say the, um, the structure behind what can make a company successful. Because I think a lot of young people, which is of course normal, they do not have enough knowledge of how impactful it could be to which shareholder you have, or what kind of contracts you make, or what kind of liabilities you take with banks or other, let's say, funding partners. So what I often do is that I try to, let's say, have dialogues with them at pivoting moments, explaining to them what kind of, let's say, what kind of different entities could be at stake. And I also help them at points where they are, let's say, trying to find new horizons or new grounds. Because
thank you.
No, it's
very nice.
It's true. No, it's true, because I think that being caught up in the moment is normal, of course, and especially when you're younger. So I think having a broader horizon and being able to oversee the outcome of a decision over a longer period of time, and let's say detailing that out a little bit in scenarios, that's what I often try to do.
Interesting. And is the founder involved like this as well with the companies, or he's more day to day in the?
Yeah, the founder is like the managing director at the moment. So he's running the school, and he's. I think what is very, let's say, applicable for him is that he has this extreme urge to build an entrepreneurial culture and to build a day-to-day framework with the team and the location and with the unknown partnership to bring the entrepreneurial culture to life, and by enhancing that, developing young people who are part of that culture.
Amazing. You mentioned that longevity is your North Star for this university, and you'd like to expand internationally as well. Obviously,
not internationally.
Not internationally?
No, nationally.
Oh, nationally. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you said geographically. Okay.
Yeah, that's in Holland. Yeah.
Only in Holland then. And why is that?
Yeah, I think in Holland we have a saying. It says, "Schoenmaker blijft bij je leest," and it means as much as that if you have a profession, it's good to stick with it, or stay close to your core competences. I believe that expanding in the education system into a different, let's say, perimeter of a country is not appealing to me, because I think that there must be other people in those countries who can do that. I think it's very important to inflict improvements in where you are. I've lived as an expat quite long, and so I always say, when in Rome, act like Romans, and I think when you're in Holland, act like a Dutch person, and improve where you are. So expanding into different countries is not something I would aspire.
Let me rephrase the question then.
Yeah.
But thank you for the answer. I would like to touch on a little bit of the decision making, as I mentioned earlier. So when you're thinking of and going into an impact-driven business, obviously there's this balance between, as you mentioned, that it might not be, the business case might not be so good. How does that decision process go through your mind, or what is that process that you're gonna decide? Okay, I know I'm not gonna make money with this, but I'm there for the long haul, and I want to see the impact and then eventually the returns.
Yeah, I think it's more like a moral quest. I think I call it the second mountain. I think, in my opinion, climbing, I think you see it, let's say, for instance, let's say moral ambition combined with entrepreneurship is becoming more of a, let's say, topic nowadays, which is maybe logical if you see the state of the current affairs in the world. I think for me, business is one of the key drivers which can implement change, and how I understand it is that I think the key driver for a normal business is, let's say, profit maximization. And in my opinion, that's very that's quite close to being to having an ego development. So you want profit maximization for it's almost like getting grades. If you get a high grade, then you're probably good or intelligent, or you're good at studying, as you just mentioned, and then you can be successful and you get the limelight being shown on you, and you are seen as somebody who has progressed well and done well. And I think that in our world, or at least in my world, or in my, let's say, part of the baton race on this planet, I think having a certain stint of your let's say, of your existence, but it sounds a little bit too much, of your, let's say, business journey, being, let's say, focused on not about my business success, but on implementing the influence I can have on bringing impact businesses to life.
And this is the phase of your business journey now that you are.
Yes, yeah, I've had it before. I've had a, let's say, a strong business career, and during the business career, I was I became more and more aware of the fact that I thought it was not healthy, focused on, let's say, communal development, but more on the development of a view. And as I became more and more and more aware of that, I felt a stronger need and urge to also put my boots on the ground and make an impact by having skin in the game.
Do you think it's easier to make impact after the fact, as you said that you had a successful business career prior as well? Given the fact that I'm in a group of young entrepreneurs, I'm a young entrepreneur myself who wants to make impact. How do you think that without money and the experience behind, someone can make impact?
Yeah, I think the key driver for me, and also for my own development, is awareness. So I think maybe if you want to phase out and have a much broader scope on viewing on things, then I think the sole purpose could be of becoming aware. And I think in my case, the awareness has grown by learning in higher business environments that the morality becomes lower instead of higher, which I didn't understand before. So I didn't have awareness of that. But at the same time, I believe that some people are born with awareness at the age of 7, and some at the age of 87. So some people will never become aware, as how I view awareness. So I don't think my knowledge is more worth than anybody else, because I'm not here to let's say, create a higher and lower awareness view on the world. I just say that in my let's say, understanding, I believe that creating awareness on viewing things as they are is maybe one of the biggest purposes you can find. And when you have a awareness at a younger age, which I think is applicable for a lot of people, then creating impact businesses when you're younger makes a lot of sense from the start. Because why would you first work for profit maximization companies when you already have the awareness that there is a different route? So I think creating And building impact companies from a younger age actually makes a lot of sense, because in the end funding is just a tool. There's money everywhere, and why not become resilient from the start? And also, I think starting the journey earlier than later is preferable. But the key challenges I think people with impact companies and journeys face is that let's say especially the framework of governance, shareholdership, funding, finance, capital, shareholder agreements, and all those, let's say, key structure items, they are, if you want it or not, they're all based on the old world. So what you have to have knowledge of those, because otherwise you will enter your journey as you should, being, let's say, very, let's say, optimistic and goal orientated. But especially with notary, fiscalities, finance, legal, shareholdership, governance, decision matrices, etc., etc. These things I believe are crucial in, let's say, the healthiness of businesses, also impact businesses. So it's also my aim to help young people with especially understanding more of those structures. But starting an impact business at a young age, I don't think it's a disadvantage. But you do need knowledge about, let's say, the older systems which still govern behind it.
And that's where you come in, right?
Yes.
That's where you're impact-driven people like you can help the young entrepreneurs like myself, right, in navigating these problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think the impact of a wrong, let's say, governance or shareholder decision can last for a decade, and there's almost nothing you can do about it. So navigating in those early stages to get the structure right can be quite impactful.
Amazing. I would like to have one more question.
Sure.
We know each other from before.
Yes.
We've connected, but I would like to ask you, what made you come on the podcast? What made you say yes?
Well, it's actually because I know you, and you asked me, and I think you are a bright young person and trying to, let's say, use your energy, drive, will, and intelligence to make a difference. So I think supporting those kind of initiatives makes a lot of sense, and it's easy for me to say yes to.
Thank you.
You're
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you for coming on.